Hello, friends. So today I wanted to share with you all the experience that changed my life. I have been wanting to put this in form for many years now. Um, so basically, I decided to do a vow of silence in 2012, November 2012. I had been an atheist for 8 years. I had a really bad experience in high school, let's just put it that way, and it just turned me off from religion and God and everything. So I was an atheist for 8 years when I made the decision to do this vow of silence. I had recently moved to a big city. I got a new job at a major international corporation. It was a big company in the entertainment industry. I won't say any more about that, but it was everything on the outside that I thought a great job looked like, right? It had great potential for growth. It would be something I could be proud to say, oh, I work for this company, and my parents would be proud. So on the outside, I thought it was, the perfect job. Shortly after I started working there, I was miserable and unhappy, and I felt frustrated. What do I need to do to be happy in life? I don't feel fulfilled. What do I need to do to feel fulfilled? So I just felt lost and confused, and I stumbled upon, I say now stumbled upon, but nothing is really accidental. I stumbled upon an article about this young woman who had done a vow of silence herself, and she found she was able to get in touch with her higher self, her inner voice, her inner wisdom, and it helped to put her more in touch with her purpose. I thought that sounded lovely. I was desperate, so I thought about it. I was like, okay, this sounds like a great idea. I went home and I immediately made the decision to do it. I decided to do a vow of silence for 14 days. Immediately after that, the rules started just flowing out of me onto paper. So the rules were, given that the reason I was doing this vow of silence was to clear my mind of clutter, but to also learn how to listen and be non-judgmental. So the rules were that I could not read any books, except for this one book, which I was allowed to read to help me put myself in a good mindful place. I won't mention what book that is, but I couldn't read any of the books. I couldn't read any articles. I couldn't listen to any music other than instrumental only, nothing with lyrics, because again, the point was not to have outside voices or opinions influencing my mind. The purpose was to align my mind with my inner self. So I couldn't speak, obviously. I was allowed to write on Post-it notes for what was necessary given the day-to-day basics. But I couldn't write, full paragraphs. The point was not to have a conversation on paper. It was to listen. So minimal conversation on Post-it notes. And I was allowed to go on social media just so that I could stay in touch with my family, but that was it. So those were the rules. The next morning I woke up, I put the little card I made for myself, I've taken a vow of silence, and I put it on my shirt and I went to work. Didn't say anything to my boss about doing it. Fortunately, everyone was great. I didn't really have a job that required me to communicate much. I just had to be on a computer doing documents. So I was fortunate in that sense. Basically what happened, I'll tell you guys my realizations, my epiphanies, the spiritual experiences that I had, the magical things that I saw and felt. It was really profound. So what I will say first is that when you can speak and you remove the ego's option of constantly validating itself, the ego then takes the back seat. And so you step into the role of observer. So like the very first day, what I first noticed was how often I wanted to complain about someone who cut me off on the highway, about someone who said something that irritated me. I just remember going through my mind wanting to rehearse what I was going to say to my roommate as soon as I got home. Oh, you won't believe what this person did. But because I couldn't speak it, right? It was like it kept hitting like a cork board, or not a cork board, but like it was like I had a cork in a wine bottle, so to speak. Like it couldn't flow. And when it couldn't flow, it just died away. Whatever complaints I had or negativity I had, because I couldn't voice them, they just fell away. So that was the first thing I became aware of, how often I had the tendency to complain or to want to complain. I also recognized over the next few days in my observations that there's always a deeper root behind people's behavior. So if someone would cut me off on the highway, I became aware that it wasn't about me. It wasn't personal. I became aware that they were probably afraid they were going to be late for work and their boss was going to chastise them. Or, I realized that there's a deeper root behind all human behavior, and that root is usually fear of criticism, fear of judgment, fear of, lack of love. So I became very aware of that, and it made me more compassionate towards people, and it helped me to not take things so personally. I also learned that silence is safety. So what I thought was interesting was that people who used to be very chatty with me or very outgoing all of a sudden didn't want to talk to me anymore. So I don't know if it's because I thought that what I was doing was weird. I think some people definitely thought what I was doing was weird. Some people thought, well, if she can't talk, then what's the point? And then some just, I guess, couldn't be validated. If their opinions couldn't be validated by me, they just didn't know what to do, so they stopped talking. And then people who didn't talk to me as much before now were like little chatterboxes. So I felt that they felt safe, that I wouldn't judge them because I couldn't speak. I could just listen to what they had to say, and they felt safer to open up. They're free from judgment and criticism. So I found that to be really interesting, the people that then spoke more and those that spoke less as a result of me not being able to speak. I also recognized that not speaking gave people a space for self-awareness. So for those that were complaining about something, right? Normally as human beings, we like to commiserate. Oh, that's awful. I know how you feel. I had this experience last week, for example. So when people would complain, because I couldn't commiserate with them, I would just kind of smile and nod and look at them and listen. It gave them that space for self-awareness, to where you almost had like the mirror was presented in front of them, and then they would often respond with something like, well, it's not really that big of a deal anyway, or, well, it's not something I have control over, or, what can you do? So they kind of worked it out on their own, recognizing that the complaining wasn't really helping them because I couldn't commiserate, right? So think about that, how often we complain about our lives or our circumstances, and if the person we were complaining to couldn't say anything back, would we still feel the need to complain? Would it feel good to complain? I mean, complaining never really feels good, but we feel like we're getting something off our chest, right? What I also realized is that time is an illusion. This became very, very apparent to me because, as the days went on, my ego became more and more silent. I became more aware of everything and being in the present moment. And I realized that time is an illusion. It's definitely something we as human beings made up, and we clash against it constantly. The only thing that exists is the present moment, and we are constantly in our minds imagining future scenarios, creating future plans, envisioning how everything will go, what this person will say, and we're living in this fantasy world in our minds. This doesn't mean that you don't plan for the future. I think you have to have a vision for the future and how you want things to be so that you can move forward towards that. But then you have to just let go and surrender, because we don't have control. So let me backstep before I get into control. So time is an illusion. For example, so we have the sunrise, right? The sun rises, it moves throughout the day, noon, about in the top of the sky, and then it sets, right? And we measure that as time. And in our minds, we perceive that's time, but it will, where was it that I was going to go with that? Oh, okay. So not the sun so much to speak as the human body. We measure the human body as time, right? You're a baby, you're born, you get older, you reach middle age, old age, and you die. And we use this as proof of time, right? It's linear. You're born, you get older, and you die. But what I was trying to do, I lost my train of thought, is we can't look at time that way because it's infinite. Because, for example, if we were to say, oh, the sun rises and then the sun sets, and then when the sun sets, that's it, that's the end. Well, it isn't, because it rises again the next day. And it is the same with human life, right? Just because we die doesn't mean that's it, that's the end of the story. It's, we will rise again, just as the sun does. So we are infinite, and there is no time. And if you focus on the present moment, what you'll find is that time expands, You become so much more aware of your environment, of what's around you, of what your soul is yearning for. You become more inspired. And then the actions that you take as a result of your inspiration are more impactful. They're more efficient. This is what flow state is. And if you allow yourself to be in the present moment, you'll constantly see it unfolding before you, and opportunities will arise, and you'll have the presence of mind to seize those opportunities. So it really is, the present moment is all that we have. And I realized that during my vow of silence, and that was really powerful. So another thing that I stopped focusing on bedtime. I used to worry about bedtime. Oh, if I don't get to bed by this hour, I'll only get this much sleep, and I'll be cranky when I go to work the next morning. I stopped paying attention to bedtime. I simply went to bed when I was ready and I was tired. So sometimes I would stay up till midnight working on a creative project because I was in flow state. And even if I only got a few hours of sleep, the next morning, miraculously, I wasn't tired. And then other days I might feel tired at 9:30, and so I'd go to bed. So it was that surrendering to that present moment and doing what my body was asking of me. So yeah, that was another thing. So control. What I also realized is that we have no control. And this is not just my personal realization. This is the truth. We don't have control. We have influence. So we can create plans. We can offer our assistance. We can set things in motion. But there are always unknown, there are always unknown, unseen forces at work. So even with the best plans and the best intentions, something can come along and, like dominoes, knock it all down or shift it in another direction. And so recognizing that we don't have control is scary at first, but it's extremely liberating, because it reduces a lot of stress and anxiety. Once you realize that, you can only do, the best you can do is set things into motion according to what you would like to have happen based on the vision in your mind, and then surrender it. That's really all we can do, because we don't have control. It's an illusion. And as long as we believe that we do have control, we suffer. So that was something else I learned. Okay, so getting to the spiritual awakening part, fairly early on, I started doing more meditating. Fairly early on, I started to have some miraculous experiences. Like, for example, I would ask a question. I remember one time leaving work and walking to my car, and I just remember thinking in my mind, like, is it really possible that there is a God out there and that he is interested in me and my life? And this is going to sound corny, but at the same moment that I had this thought, a huge hawk flew right across my path, landed in the tree right next to where I was walking, looked me in the eyes, and this was all simultaneous. The moment I had the thought, the hawk flew, landed this tree, and looked me in the eyes. And the moment it looked me in the eyes, it was like everywhere in my soul, the answer was yes. It wasn't I heard it in my head, I just knew it throughout my whole body. The minute he looked me in the eyes, it was like a mental imprint. I don't know any other way to explain that, but it was simultaneous and it was miraculous, and I will never forget that for as long as I live. I also started to feel love everywhere around me. When you're able to calm your mind that much and lower your frequency, or I guess raise it is how you would say it, but I was able to just change my frequency completely to be so calm and present that I started feeling love all around me at all times. There'd be times where I'd be walking and all of a sudden it would feel like someone had grabbed my hand and was holding my hand. My hand would just get really, really, really warm, and I felt a presence there holding me. And there was a time I was falling asleep in my room, and I became aware of all of the air surrounding me, like every atom, every molecule in the air. It's as if when you're in the ocean, if you're swimming, right, it doesn't just feel like you have some water droplets around your body. You feel the movement of the whole ocean around you. That was what it felt like. All of the air became one unified presence, and I could feel it wrapping itself around me and hugging me and holding me, and it felt like pure love, like I was being embraced. And, I wish I could say, oh, I have my awakening, everything's great. I have these experiences all the time now, because I don't. I'm back in, the space where I have to share my brain with my soul and my ego. But that was the most heightened state I'd ever been in during these 2 weeks. When I would meditate, I would start to feel this warm presence wrapping itself around me. I would start to see glowing lights behind my eyelids. And with the glowing lights came this overwhelming feeling of love, to the point where it would make me cry because it was so overwhelming, like my body couldn't take it. So that was another experience I had, sitting in a chair meditating. I became so present because basically what I discovered is that God is love, God is energy, and energy is in everything. God is in everything, love is in everything. There's nothing that exists, not this crystal, not this pen or pencil, that doesn't have energy and God's energy in it. So sitting in this chair meditating, it was like I was no longer just sitting on a chair. The chair was holding me. And same thing, I felt that loving presence, consciousness wrapping itself around me. So you can get to this point. This is not something special. And I should say that I was not doing drugs at the time I did this. I had never really been much of a drug person. I only smoked weed a couple times in high school or college, sorry. Never did LSD. So this was just pure sober consciousness. I wasn't drinking. So you don't need those things to have miraculous experiences. You can just ground yourself and calm your mind to the point that you can become aware of the most miraculous things around you. But you have to really change the frequency. It's like tuning the dial on a radio. It really is that simple of an explanation. If you're able to tune the dial of your own frequency, you will have significantly different experiences. So I had those experiences. What else? Okay, so my last realizations, which I will share with you. I also discovered that each human being, we're all completely whole. We're completely whole right now as we are, who we are with what we have. There's nothing that you can get outside of you that will make you feel more whole. That is an illusion. That is the ego craving and seeking external gratification. You have everything you need within you to feel completely joyful, completely happy and peaceful and deeply loved. When you experience profound love outside of you or fulfillment outside of you, it is simply a mirror reflection of what you already have inside of you. So remember that. You can have a really wonderful, loving relationship and feel that relationship is fulfilling you, but it's just mirroring back to you what you already have within yourself, right? Because if that relationship were to end, you might cling to it or feel miserable. And so it's the recognition that any external circumstance that makes you feel happy or fulfilled, it's just a mirror reflection of what you already have inside of you. So we're all already completely whole and completely loved at all times. I also discovered that all each human being wants is to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. This became very apparent because I couldn't speak. People would just talk to me. Their interactions with me were so much more authentic and genuine because, again, they felt free from being judged. They felt finally someone that will just listen to me, that's not going to put in their opinion or offer advice. And I also discovered, because as the ego became suppressed and as I'd be walking around, going about my day, running errands, walking on the street, that I would always look at people in the eye when I passed them. I was no longer afraid to make eye contact or needing to be in my personal space. I would just look at everyone that I met in the eye and smile. And what I discovered was no matter who they were, at some point within that 7-foot distance before you pass someone, at some point, they would always look over at me. Every single person I passed, whether they were trying to be independent or in their private space, every single person at some point within that 7-foot distance before passing me would look them in the eye. Why? Because all we want is connection. And we know that we're related. We know that we're connected. We know each other on a deep level, even if we don't know each other's name or each other's story. So I picked up on that deep need for connection. Again, to be seen by another human being, to be heard, to be valued, to be loved, to be acknowledged as worthy. So I will close out this discussion with that. Feel free to comment below if you have any other questions about what I experienced. What I talked about just now is just tip of the iceberg. I had so many other, I could see miraculous colors. It was a lot of phenomenal things that happened in just a 2-week period, and that was my first spiritual awakening. It has led me to where I am now. I have very vivid memories of everything that happened at that time, but you don't have to do a vow of silence to have this experience or to encounter God or the divine. You can even, you can be an atheist and have this experience. It's not a prerequisite that you believe in God. You can experience pure love, pure calm, presence, flow, just by grounding yourself and changing your frequency, becoming so present and calming your mind to the point where your ego just takes the back seat. That is where the magic happens. When the ego takes the back seat, that is where the magic happens. So just remember, in your interactions with people, whenever possible, give them your full undivided attention. It doesn't mean you have to give them your attention all the time, but when you do, give them your undivided attention. Listen to them, because that is the greatest gift you can ever give someone, even if it's only 5 minutes of your time. Listening to what they have to say, making eye contact, letting them know that they are seen and that they are valued is the greatest gift that we can give each other. So I hope this video was helpful for some of you, inspiring for some of you, and that is all. My name is Caroline, and thank you guys for watching. Bye.